There's a particular kind of understanding that doesn't come all at once, but forms slowly over a long time through small pieces of insight, each of which adds something to the complete picture without being complete on its own. And then one day you're doing something ordinary in some ordinary place, and suddenly that whole picture becomes clear in front of you in a way that nothing about it had prepared you for. And this understanding descends in such a complete and heavy form that it couldn't have been expected from the slowly gathering pieces that led to it. The understanding I'm talking about today came to me exactly this way. After years of small insights, each of which told me something about the thing I was facing, until the day came when its complete form finally became clear. And what became clear was this: when some people leave, they leave empty spaces inside you, not wounds at all. Because a wound means something that heals with time, that closes up and becomes a scar, that remains present but no longer hurts. But empty spaces are something entirely different, recognized not by the presence of a loss but by its absence, which don't hurt the way wounds do, but also can't heal the way wounds do. They simply remain in the shape of the thing that's no longer there forever, in exactly the size and form of the person who left them. I came to understand this through one particular person before I understood it as a general principle of loss, and that particular person taught me this general truth by being so completely and irreplaceably themselves that when they were no longer part of my life the way they once were, the space they left wasn't an ordinary space, not no one that could be filled by something or someone else, but a particular space exactly in their own shape. And everything I received after that wasn't the right shape for that space, not because I didn't receive good, meaningful, or beautiful things, but because their shape was different, and things of a different shape can fill a space of a particular shape, no matter their own worth or quality. The day this understanding came to me wasn't the day I lost that person, as you might think, as I myself would have guessed beforehand. If someone had asked me when the full weight of loss settles in, I would have said, in the moment of losing them. But that's not how it happened for me. The moment of loss was so full of other things: the immediate business of grief, worrying about how I appeared, and that strange busyness that loss produces in its early stages when there's so much to do that the real feeling of the thing gets scattered among all that activity and never takes on its complete form. That complete form gathered later in a quiet moment, a moment that doesn't announce itself as the moment something important is about to become clear. And what became clear wasn't the fact of absence, I already knew that fact, but the permanent nature of its particular shape. The understanding that I'm not in some temporary state in which something is missing that could eventually be resolved or made up for, but rather in a permanent relationship with a particular emptiness that will stay with me for the rest of my life, not shrinking with time but becoming something I'm getting better at carrying, which isn't the same as it shrinking, but is actually a kind of acknowledgement that this empty space is real, permanent, and mine. I have, and I want to be honest about this, tried in various ways over the years to do something about this empty space, not by giving that person's place to someone else, because I don't believe someone else can take the place of certain losses, but by finding ways to do something with the empty space itself, adopting an attitude toward it that feels more active than simply carrying it around. And what I've come to know is that the most honest relationship with it is to stop trying to resolve it and simply accept it as a permanent part of who I now am, a permanent part something woven into my structure, the same way if formative experiences become part of a person's structure, not something external being carried, but something internal that simply exists, woven into how I work, how I see things, and at certain moments into how I react. When the shape of this empty space collides with the shape of something in the present, and that collision is always surprising even when I know it's coming, always landing with the freshness that years of familiarity haven't dulled. Because this empty space never becomes that familiar, it always remains just as particular and present and in exactly the same shape it always was, no matter how long I've lived alongside it. Some people have asked me not about this particular matter, but in the general way people ask when they sense something in you they can't name, whether I'm okay, whether I've come to terms with difficult things, and I've always answered in the way that was most honest given the circumstances, which is in this sense that I'm able to function, I find meaning, and I haven't been disabled by what I carry. But the honest answer I've never fully given is that being okay and having an empty space inside are not separate things but can exist side by side. That you can be truly okay, truly functional, present, capable of joy and engagement, everything that being okay means, and at the same time carry within you a permanent particular absence that nothing will ever completely fill, and the coexistence of these two things is neither a contradiction nor a sign that the okay is false or that the empty space is being ignored. It's simply what the reality looks like for someone who has truly loved someone, lost them forever, and yet continued living, which, if we are honest, is what most of us are doing all the time anyway. I wish I had understood this sooner, and I say this not as a regret, but as something I want to offer to the earlier version of myself who was in the beginning stages of this understanding. That the emergence of this empty space's complete shape isn't a decline. It's not proof that you failed to accept the loss properly or that you're stuck somewhere you should have moved past. Rather, it's actually a form of clarity, finally seeing the full size of what you had and what you lost, and within that clarity, however painful it may be, there is also a kind of honoring of that person and that relationship, a refusal to diminish them by treating the space they left as something lesser. And I've come to understand that this empty space is permanent remaining is my most honest tribute to a person who truly was irreplaceable, because its permanence is itself proof of that irreplaceability, and irreplaceability is proof of how real that person was and how real our relationship was, and real things should be acknowledged as real rather than being reshaped into some more comfortable form to make them manageable. The day I came to this understanding that some people leave behind empty spaces nothing can fill wasn't, in the ordinary sense, a good day. It wasn't a day on which I felt better, clearer, or more at peace. It was a difficult day, one of the hardest I remember, because bearing the full weight of something permanent is never comfortable and shouldn't be. But strangely, it was also an important day, a day that changed something in my relationship with this loss and with that person, turning it from something I was still, to some extent, resisting into complete acceptance, not a happy acceptance, but a real one, an acceptance that doesn't fight reality but acknowledges it and then asks how to build an honest life alongside it. And the life I've lived since that day is, I believe, more honest than the life before it, more honest about what I carry, what I don't have, and what has shaped me and continues to shape me in ways that aren't always visible but are always present. And I believe living honestly is the right way to live, even if being honest means carrying something permanent that will never be filled. and knowing that carrying it isn't some temporary phase but simply the shape of who you are now and who you'll continue to be.